Hi everybody, I'm here at White Rock Lake. I've just finished a beautiful ride around the lake. It's 85 degrees out here in the middle of March, weather that nobody deserves to have in March, but we have here today. It's awesome. It was beautiful, I sweated, it was just fantastic. Kind of day I live for. So, I've come out here today to talk to you about the gift of temptation. Why the heck have I come to White Rock Lake to talk to you about the gift of temptation? Well, stay tuned. First off, a point about temptation that Eric Elnes makes in the book Gifts of the Dark Wood. Elnes says, most of us most of the time are not tempted between obvious evil and obvious good. It's not like Star Wars. We love Star Wars because it's simple. It's a simple choice between the good side and the dark side, between Rey and Kylo Ren. The good guys and the bad guys even wear light and dark. Come on, it's obvious. But Elnes points out that most of us don't really live that way. Most of the choices that you and I face are not of the Star Wars variety. He says it this way: consider the last time you were seriously tempted to do something overtly sinister or evil. He says more often than not in our lives, the temptations that you and I face are between different kinds of good, between two choices or more than two choices, each of which are good in their own way, not evil. It's like those trails I showed you last week at Mount Sequoia Wood, this picture of the different trails there. 4 trails, all of which look like pretty good options. Elnes says this, quote, "The temptation to do the wrong good is one of the greatest gifts you can receive, as it continually challenges you to discern between the good you are called to do and the good you are not called to do." And he says this about it: "I accomplish more and I'm happier doing it when I pay less attention to the, quote, right thing and pay more attention to those sweet spot moments that reveal what I am called to do." Far too often we can talk ourselves out of the really good and beautiful and holy things in life because they're not logical. They don't make perfect sense. But Elnes notes this: more often than not, your intuition, your deeply listening to the voice of the Spirit, is a better judge than your logic, reason, or strategic ability. And that gets me back to the lake here, about why I came out here to do this video here. And it's something that I've told the people at North Haven many times, but it is the truth that every single time I come out here to take a bike ride, every single time, in my head, I'm thinking of the other things that I could or should be doing right at that moment. There's always a phone call I should have returned. There's a shut-in I should visit. There's time I should spend with Maria or Denise. There's a sermon I should be working on. There's always something else to do besides this. It's kind of that way about all self-care, really. We have to take the time for self-care. We have to take the time for that. But it's also the same way for the real true goods of our lives, the holy goods, the beautiful things, the things that bring us the most joy. We can almost always talk ourselves out of joy and talk ourselves into some lesser good. I think a lot about a phrase from Stephen Covey that I heard many, many years ago. It goes something like this: "It's easy to say no when there's a deeper yes burning within." I have to say, I've never really been quite sure about that. I think it's difficult to say no to things. It's very easy to say yes. And ironically for me, it's harder for me to say no to things when things are going well. When I'm taking care of myself, when I'm coming out here, when I'm praying, when I'm writing in my journal, my own ego gets into it and I say, yeah, I can say yes to this. Yeah, I can say yes to that. Yeah, I can say yes to this other thing. All good things, mind you, but maybe not the best good or the greatest good that I could be called to, or the good of my soul, the good of my heart. Especially for those of us who work in the church, this is a really bad problem because we're trying to help the world. We're trying to visit the sick and reach the poor and the hungry. and heal the brokenhearted. What's bad about any of that? But at any given moment, all of us have to choose between different goods. Frederick Buechner said something a long time ago about vocation, which is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard about vocation. He said this, quote, "There are all different kinds of voices calling to you, to all different kinds of work. And the problem is to find out which is the voice of God rather than of society, say, or the superego or self-interest." And Frederick Buechner says this about picking and understanding our vocation. He says, "The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." The place where those two things meet. And in the video this week for The Dark Woods, Parker Palmer makes a great observation about this. I've loved this quote from Buechner for a couple of decades, but he notes that the first thing Buechner says is the first half of that intersection is your deep gladness. The place where your deep gladness and the world's hunger meet. That's the place we're called to. So it means your joy, your happiness has to be a part of the good you do in the world. And that if you're doing good in the world and you're just miserable all the time, then maybe that's not the good you're called to. These are tough choices. It's tough choices to consider the different goods. It's tough when there are 4 roads ahead of you and they all seem to be beautiful. It's tough when there's a couple of bike paths here at the lake and they each have incredible vistas. Which one do we choose? All we can really say is at those moments we need to listen to the voice of God, listen to our intuition, and not talk ourselves out of the good that God calls us to. Next Sunday is Palm Sunday at the church. We're very excited. We start our Holy Week journey. We hope you'll be with us at North Haven. See you then.